Wait, hold on. Before we go on to Dune, I do want to make a comment about video games since it was brought up. I need some teammates. I need some Helldiver 2 members because I just joined. Per our previous podcast, everyone was like, fighting off the bugs and the robots.
Democracy, yeah.
It is, I jumped into it, and I feel like I'm a pretty decent first-person shooter guy, but it was a little bit different, and I liked the challenge. It felt scary, man. I was like,
I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it because the anti-cheat stuff they use is like a kernel level rootkit, and
what?
I cannot install that. Why didn't we bring this up
before I bought it, guys?
Well, I didn't know you were gonna.
What's your job, Josh? Again, what is your profession for the viewers at home?
Cybersecurity.
Dude, just reinstall your operating system.
Start back from scratch. Some Chinese firm.
You've joined a bot farm as well as the Super Earth Army.
I had to make a PlayStation account and give up my mother's maiden name and my bank account. So I don't know what that was about.
Do you have a PlayStation 5?
No, but apparently in order to play, you have to have at least it said in order to play the game, you have to create. I didn't test it. I should have tested it. But I just was like, yeah, sure, take my money and I'll sign up for whatever you want. Like that's what I did.
Yeah.
Don't do that, guys. Be skeptical.
Yeah, that's not advice.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion I'm trying to find I need to find one of my soldiers that's not using their PS5 that I can steal to play it because I'm not buying a PC.
No.
Because I don't have a PC hardened.
You get the military to buy you a PS5 for morale.
For morale.
That you keep at your office.
At the office, and then I can play Helldiver still work. I'm sure that'll go over real well with my team.
Bro.
But listen, if any of my soldiers are listening to this and you want to bring a PS5 by Squadron, I'm totally down with that.
Dude, it's too bad you're not Catholic because you could totally trade on the whole absolution thing. Like, I get the corruption. I really do.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway.
Technically an indulgence? I don't know.
Yeah, literally.
My gosh.
So,
anyway,
on the video game,
Dune.
though, but yeah. So that's the issue, right? So the sound thing, experience, right? So when it comes to watching Dune, naturally, I wanted to go see this in the theater. And so I went by myself. I went to, a theater here in Hamburg and saw it. And, man, so I gotta say, right off the bat with the Dune Part 1, let's just start from the beginning. You guys have all seen Dune Part 1?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Stays pretty close to the original
solid.
In terms of the book as well. Really great, really well done. However, when they introduced Chani, like she was skeptical in the books too. And Chani, just for the people at home, that's the character played by Zendaya. So, spoiler alerts, you've been warned. We're going to talk about first and second parts of Dune.
Is it Chani or Chani?
Chani,
Sound like
Chani.
they said Chani.
Chani.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm just be judging all of your pronunciations from here on out. I'm just saying.
That's okay.
Right. That's what you want you guys who know Greek to argue with each other about.
Over the pronunciation of fictional Arabic names. Atreides.
Feyruatha.
Feyruatha. No, you're good. So here's my frustration is they introduced this character. Now, part one, I said, right, bang on the money. But there was something about the way that Zendaya was playing this character in the first one that kind of gave me the feeling. I'm like, dude, I think they're going to write this to where she is opposite. She's playing oppositional to the Paul Atreides character.
Right.
So for those and so for people at home who don't know, like you have Paul Atreides, who's the protagonist. And then you have Zendaya's character, Chani, who's his love interest. She's a Fremen. They fall in love. And in the books, she is fiercely loyal to Paul the whole way through, right? Like
you might want like a wife to be, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Some might say, what?
Hold on, are we doing spoiler alerts here? Because I think
I already gave one.
Yeah, no, that was a blanket.
Spoiler alerts. Okay, hold on. Let me pause right here. Okay. The following interview, we're going to come through with some spoilers. So if you don't want to listen to about Dune 2, Part 2 with spoilers, don't listen. Hold off until you watch it.
Yeah. So go ahead right now too if you're in the comment section and you if you liked Part 2 or you know where I'm going with this, just go ahead and start banging out and give me your essays in the bottom. I will Read them. Because here's the thing, like
arguing with commenters, that's a great way to get started.
Yeah, hey, we do what we can. But so I go into the second movie, which like aesthetically, visually, I mean, absolutely fantastic. Like the Harkonnen homeworld, Gidi Prime, and
Yeah.
they shot that in IR. So Josh, I know Josh is, for those of you who don't know, Josh is big into video production and editing. So I mean, so parts of this were shot, I think, 70 millimeter IMAX, pretty incredible, and digital IMAX, and then but this scene, all the stuff that was shot on Gidi Prime, was shot in infrared. So that's why those scenes of like the arena when we're introduced to Thade Ratha are just striking, and it's like you kind of got three flavors. So for people who don't know either, you have like the Atreides in the first one. Their homeworld is lush, like massive
idyllic paradise.
Yeah, it's like an ocean, based world, kind of antithetical to Dune, obviously the desert planet. And then Gidi Prime is like an industrial hellscape, effectively. It's like very similar to if you saw Prometheus and like Ridley Scott's view of like the architect's world.
The whole fossil fuel theme was prevalent in his writing, like that the theme throughout, right? Like the idea of what fossil fuel being the trigger of war, and it really came through in the Artridi or the Harkonnens. Harkonnens.
That part is like not thinly veiled allegory for sure.
Not at all. Definitely, we're talking about. Yeah, and that was the whole idea, was that, there's a lot of parallels to Afghanistan. Like when we went to war in Afghanistan, Iraq, everyone was reading Dune because it's like, oh, this is super. Like I remember listening to people say like, hey, if you're going to fight in, Iraq or Afghanistan, you haven't read Dune yet. Like you need, okay.
And then people started sniffing sand and be like, it doesn't do anything.
It's not doing anything for me. Yeah. So the parallels though is you have, there were a couple things that I thought were interesting in Dune. In the book anyway, is he talks about, it's really the Fremen and the culture of Dune is very derivative from Islam and Middle Eastern culture. And
uses the same words, same language.
Correct. Yeah. So some liberties that the director took were, in the book, it's clearly, Paul's afraid of this concept of jihad, that there would be a jihad in his name. And the language that Frank Herbert uses is jihad. And obviously,
I wonder what he was trying to say there.
I know, right? Interesting. So in the movies, he pivots to this. He uses the terminology "holy war," which again, it's like in an attempt to either broaden the conversation or make it less derivative. He undermines what was pretty clearly a direct intent of the author, which was to draw parallels to that. And there's even a part where the Reverend Mother, the Lady Jessica, has a vision of the previous Sunni and Shia ancestors. So it's almost explicitly in the text that the implication we're given to understand is that these people on Dune and in the far future are direct, their religious system is directly pulled and descended from.
Right. And so would the
Islam.
worms be equivalent to the Nephilim that the Saudis are hiding under Mecca? Is that
it tracks,
It's the Leviathan of the sand.
That's right. It's all fan fiction, man. That's how I've taken to describing heresies and other religions I disagree with, is fan fiction.
Fan fiction.
So that's it.
They did they did a lot of stuff with the theme of Islam, and just kind of like you had the zealots that were the believers, and then you had Shani's character was like, this is how they control you, religion is how you control you. And I think Frank Herbert, with the theme and what I read up on his commentaries on how he wrote it, like he started doing like some research on like the dunes of Oregon or something, and had too much research that he was like, I need to turn this into a book. And then he was very like cynical of fossil fuels and energy and how it destroyed humanity. He's got a very cynical view on humanity. Like there's gray areas, there's moral gray areas. Nobody is truly right and wrong. What's interesting is Tolkien was asked to review Frank Herbert's book, Dune, right? And he wrote back and he's like, I hate this with intensity. What? Why is that? And I think, and some people have gone on to speculate that in the Lord of the Rings, it's a very Catholic based worldview where, and it's interesting that Dune, if it's based on Islam, isn't like that, but it's not based on Islam. It's really based on
based
Frank
on
Herbert's.
Islam.
Yeah,
No, he's pointing it at, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
But the Lord of the Rings, it's like there is a clear fault line that separates good and bad. And though like Boromir falls victim to his own temptations and essentially sins and betrays Frodo, like there is still a definitive this is good, this is evil. However, some people think that maybe he didn't like Tolkien didn't like Dune because it was really kind of like a nihilist, Nietzschean.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, and I think if you
just hopelessness.
Yeah, and if you go back to our conversation about Helldivers 2 and Starship Troopers, Frank Herbert writing 10, 15 years after that book came out. The thing about this concept is the same idea. It's part of the appeal of like the sci-fi boom of the 60s and 70s was the envisioning of a world where these things would, like how these ideas, and again, to go back to the fourth turning, when we go back and look at how people are looking at social change as they're coming out of the awakening in the 60s. So they're coming out of the Leave It to Beaver, everything's wonderful, everything's great in the 50s, and the cracks are starting to show, and there's new concepts and new ideas or a new view of the way the world is. The authors of that time period are drawing a thread forward, and they're imagining in their brain at the pace. And this is what I think is so fascinating about like what they call cassette sci-fi, which is like the original Alien, all the Isaac Asimov stuff, right? Is that they're imagining change at the pace they've experienced it, which in their minds pulls them all the way into distant worlds, thousands of years into the future.
At some point, we're going to get at what they did to Foundation in that just most garbage series ever.
I know. I know.
Just cut every scene that didn't have Lee Pace in it, and you've actually got a pretty decent miniseries. You know?
So, going back to part 2, though, you said that part 1, pretty close to the storyline.
Pretty straight,
part
cut and
2,
dry with the
very
different.
Zendaya or the Chani character was kind of like
and
was loyal but not really loyal. Or played the opposite. Go ahead.
Can I just point out the arrogance of these writers who take these like beloved classics that are like clearly have stood the test of time, and all this stuff, and just be like, I'm gonna fix it. Like,
I can make it better.
Your friggin' mind.
I can make it better.
They should do that for movies that were bad. That were bad
fix
already.
Bad movies.
Rewrite them, fix them.
Yeah.
Try to fix good movies. However, to the defense of a story, from a story standpoint, usually in romance novels or significant like romantic tropes in books, they will because there's always going to be a protagonist and an antagonist, and they will put the love interest as the antagonist, right? Is not somebody, because there's that conflict that boy meets girl, boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl again. And it's
but Dune is in a love story in that same way.
Exactly.
But
I think that could explain why they placed her as being more of the I
think it was
agree with
they do it because they have to have an elevated female character that's on par with every male character.
Yes,
there can be
they shoehorned her.
When I think about it,
and that's exactly it. Let's call it what it is. Because here's what's ridiculous, and I can summarize it in one piece of dialogue in that whole movie. When Paul sits there and looks at her and says, like, "Hey, I just want to be equal with you, and I want to be," and so her response is, "Okay, I'll make you Fremen." And he's like, "I'll show you how to become Fremen." But then he does everything that everyone asks of him, and she's like, "You're not Fremen. You're not Fremen. You can't lead us. You're a foreigner. You're an outworlder." And it's like your Messiah complex. And the ironic thing is, one, Chaney and none of them knew about the Bene Gesserit stuff. And for those of you who don't know, the Bene Gesserit, and this gets into kind of what Josh was talking about with the whole ideologies and how they play in the nihilistic view, is that the Bene Gesserit are these space witches that basically are steering the hand of every global leader and mixing bloodlines to produce a messiah, effectively. Okay,
right.
And so they spread lore in the scale of thousands of years across worlds. And so basically it's kind of like Frank Herbert's answer to the notion of like why we have Messiah, lore in every religion across the world,
Right.
is that there's this, it's this deliberate, guiding. It was the Illuminati theory before the Illuminati theory was cool.
Right.
And that's what's going on here. But like Chaney didn't know about any of that in the books. And so
Okay.
like the notion that she and like the interjection of this stuff, like you said earlier, oh well, there's the zealots and all that. None of that's in the books. Like the idea that the southern tribes are or way more zealots than the northern tribes, and the notion of like generational.
So they were just doing all this cope to deal with the fact that, we can't have what was a typical view of Muslims superimposed directly into sci-fi
Correct.
without
Right.
doing
Heaven
the
forbid.
not all Muslims bit.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Or that like, well, the young people certainly wouldn't believe that. Like the young people wouldn't be into that notion. And that's literally what happened. There's a scene where Stilgar, most
so
respected, super, super important character in the first movie. You see Stilgar, right? He commands a ton of respect. He walks and he deals with it, right? And literally Zendaya and her little girlfriend, like best friend, are like mouthing off and making him sound like he's some like southern hillbilly who believes in, and they literally paint him as this guy who just buys into Messiah ideology instead of what he was. And I'm sitting there just going like, what is happening right now?
I'm gonna name a new trope, because like we've had like Mary Sue's, all this stuff, but like we gotta have a categorical name for like the, hey, we randomly elevated this woman because we couldn't have a guy be at the top of the social hierarchy, and we're just gonna call it the Lilith, because that's
Lilith?
Exactly what it is.
That's awesome. The Lilith.
No,
I mean that's I think that's good. The thing is also we're coming off of like commentaries, right? If we were to look at this from a woke perspective or a new, modernity perspective, and we're looking at this white dude comes into this Bedouin community and claims to be the Messiah, it puts off the white man's burden vibes, the white savior, trope that everybody looks at, and so then they have to attack it and they have to frame it in that way, and it's like, well, we can't get rid of Paul as a main character because he's written into it, but we can try to undermine him as much as possible, and
which is hilarious because you
put the people around
don't have
him
to do that.
who's not loyal. Right,
you don't have to do that because Frank Herbert did that.
Right.
No, that's what
it's
makes
like a
it so
Lawrence of
ridiculous.
Arabia.
Yes.
Like kind of similarities.
No, because the difference is Lawrence of Arabia is like he writes it, like the white dude writes it about his exploits, right? Like here's the difference. Frank Herbert is writing this book as a commentary on colonization and religion, and it's critical. So what's hilarious is what they basically said is
it wasn't explicit enough.
Dune is too highbrow. We're gonna make it. We're going to bring it way, way, way down to like right here. Here it is. Okay, Outworlder spaceman. If you try to Messiah, your girlfriend's going to leave you and ride away on a worm into the sunset. And that's literally what happened.
Okay, this is why I want to go back and watch I think it's 1984 version of
I'm so angry.
of Dune, because I think I think the last time that I watched it with part one, I was watching Dune the original. I was like, man, this is a lot deeper in the original.
Yeah,
it seems like it covers a lot more lore. It covers a lot more behind everything.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, you're right. So that really, it's interesting. I didn't really recognize it until you said it. It's like, let's go and take top shelf Dune, philosophy, theology, and let's put it at the bottom shelf so that the consumers can like eat it up and make comments about, how they liked it or didn't like it. It's like,
because here's what infuriates me about it is that it was good discourse. When Frank Herbert, here's the point, to do nuanced discourse, it takes time. Dune is a monstrous book that takes a lot of time to get through.
Well, because you have to give the opportunity to actually let people be viewed in their own context, the way they view things, rather than just having everybody viewed from some central worldview that says, those are the bad guys.
Right. It is intentionally nuanced. On the one hand, you have the Atreides that are given to be this, good house, right? But then they lack the conviction, right, to truly make change. Then on the other side, you have the Harkonnens, who are purely like we will do whatever it takes and whatever is necessary, and our way is the right way, and we don't really care what anybody thinks about it. And then you have the Paddish Emperor, who is maintaining global or stability of the universe while conserving and consolidating his power. And each one of these sects, and then you have the other houses that are kind of irrelevant.
Like there's
in
an
this context.
internally coherent, rational basis for all of their approaches individually.
Correct. And how do they deal with this narrative that plays out with this Kwisatz Haderach, this young, Messiah type figure as he comes into his own and he raises power from Dune? What you start to realize is, and this is what Frank Herbert does, is he says he takes the middle path. I mean, Paul Atreides is literally the middle path. He is the grandson of Baron
of the
Baron Harkonnen
families,
of both families, and he is in a position. He controls the central resource that unites the entire universe.
Right.
The dude is literally the middle road, and and he's the Kwisatz Haderach, which is the fulfillment of the black hand of
Your pronunciation is on point.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, he's the centerpiece of the what's their names? The Bene Gesserit's whole culmination of their work. So you have this masterful story and this masterful argument and they critique.
Had to bring some random chick up to be like, well, you're not really the savior. Yeah.
She sounded exactly like that. Your pronunciation is amazing, Tim.
I'm going to do a supercut when that movie comes out. I'm literally going to make my own supercut where I just remove her from the entire movie.
Dude, we can do that with AI now.
It's so bad. I know.
Cut. Yeah. Like we're going to be able to fix all of this
everything,
garbage.
all of the dialogue between the two of them.
All the shade that she was
hilarious?
Casting and looking at him, she was like, "I am so loyal to you. I just want to stay."
Yeah, no,
you'll never lose me
it.
as I lose you. And that's the hilarious thing. All it showed was her lack of conviction and her selfishness, as opposed to that. And but anyway, but the point is you take her out of it, and it won't change the story at all. That's the best part because he was never supposed to be there to begin with.
Well, okay. Can we also acknowledge Christopher Walken?
So good
as the
best.
Emperor.
He's the best.
I half expected him
Listen,
when he was like going up to him. He's like,
Paul,
kiss my ring. He was gonna be like,
baby,
you got me all wrong.
You got me all wrong.
We can also make that happen with AI.
Bro, I want that to happen. That was so funny. I just there's certain things, there's certain characters and certain actors that I cannot remove from my own, typecasted stereotype of who they are. Oh, yeah. And so I kept thinking about, he's going to say something about a watch. He's going to say something about,
I guarantee
Vietnam
you that Denis Villeneuve, he literally probably looked at Christopher Walken and was like, you will say nothing.
Read the lines.
That's his guidance.
Just deadpan.
You will say
read the lines and
nothing.
Deadpan. That's it.
Just look at the camera and just look old.
Paul.
Right?
I mean,
Paul,
come on.
Paul,
my guy.
Come on.
That was a problem.
My daughter? You kiss?
There's got to be some sort of mistake. Anyway, I think he did fine. I just wanted that. I wanted that.
Okay, now side note.
That whole.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, two other things. Now, cool things about Dune that I thought were great. One, the Sardaukar warriors with the long swords, sick. Loved that.
Yeah.
They had they're literally almost medieval swords. Super cool.
Yeah.
I think it's so awesome. It's out of place, but it kind of reminds you of when this book was written, where in Frank Herbert's mind, the thing that solidified the families, the ruling families, is their trove of atomics, their atomic weapons.
Right. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
Yeah.
And that they're called atomics, right? At the time. And again, that whole cassette tape, sci-fi mentality. Loved that. But yeah, man, I think the best.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
just people don't appreciate what a significant impact that has on geopolitics, knowing that there's basically a hard ceiling for how serious conflict can be. You can't make existential threats against a nuclear power. Just full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, but anyways, about Dune, going back to Dune, I think one of the cool, interesting things that I found in the relation to Islamic apocalypse, like the Mahdi, the like this Messiah that was coming. In Islam, that's the one that will bring justice back to the world. That will say, Islam is the truth, and will essentially declare a jihad on the world and bring everything back to the truth. And I was like, man, he's really, and the fact that he's using the language of jihad in the book, it's like he's not veiling anything. But here's the question: it's like, why is that the religion he chose as being the?
I wonder, Josh, why do you think that would be the case?
I mean,
okay. I thought you were seriously asking that question. I was like, I feel like this is self-evident.
Well, no. I mean, I was kind of jesting, but on a more serious note, it's like in his choice of religions, for instance, to feature, it's interesting that it didn't seem like there was any semblance of Christianity other than the Messiah prophecy aspect, but they kind of just undermined it all by saying it was all made up, and speaking of sci-fi, like there's like, have you ever seen The Expanse? And another spoiler alert, The Expanse, and how you have the Mormon church. That's
or
I love that shit.
Did you watch?
And they just stole everything from the Mormons and like, dang, that's pretty cold. Like,
Did you watch? What's it called? What was the Raised by Wolves?
No.
You haven't seen Raised by Wolves? The
No,
HBO?
I did not think it was good.
Did you watch it or did you just start it?
I started it and it just...
Okay. What
you got to see it through. It gets a little weird, but the thing that's
got me,
interesting
guys.
is you have... basically, they rip off like Zoroastrianism effectively, and they make it very similar to Christianity, and which they are, the two are.
Well, and that's one of those
basically
like
just
classical
Gnostics.
Critiques that Christianity is just derivative of Zoroastrianism, which is but I mean it's a really like edgelord
trope. Yes, it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they kind of took Frank Herbert's concept of like, again, I call it that, like that long thread thing, right? Where like they pull it all the way out to see what it would look like far in the future. Or just like Man in the High Castle. Hey, let's imagine what Nazis would look like in the 21st century by pulling that all the way through.
I think that Hollywood has to just deal with the fact that, and this is why they make so many like explicitly Nazi themed stuff, is the fact that they were snappy dressers. And the Hollywood just can't stay away from
they have
that.
all their uniforms. That's why. Because their costuming department, they're all,
that's so funny.
Those are actual uniforms. Right. Like they have basically brigades worth of uniforms that they got. But that's totally true. It's they characterize it that way. But I think it gets at, I think this is what's for sure communicated in Dune, and what is definitely clear in the second Dune is that, and what I think people have forgotten in our modern society because they've become so divorced from conviction and belief, is that conviction is necessary to accomplish the kinds of things that reshape civilizations. And you cannot have peace when conviction exists, because basically what you're saying, and Tim brought this up, right before we started rolling, was that when you're talking about ultimate conviction, you're talking about things you're willing to die for. And if you're willing to die for something, you're sure as hell willing to kill for it. And you're really not going to mince words or care about people's emotions when it comes to that. And that's that tension is what I felt Dune, the director and the team that was responsible for the second part, was really struggling with, because it's really unpleasant to and it's very uncomfortable for them to sit in that tension of the fact that, like, how can you do good when, in order to motivate people for that level of action, it requires drawing lines in the sand. No pun intended.
You have to find that truth that is like undeniable, and then you don't have to worry about making up a conviction. Right, like you actually follow the truth of the reality that there is a fall, a redemption, and a restoration. So I think that that's a very, very interesting point. I think that there's a lot of I like that perspective that you're bringing to this, Josh. This idea of a mindset of where it was okay for people to be a lot more high shelf and sit in the the discomfort.
Because what makes them really uncomfortable is the fact that there's no narrator endorsed truth at the top level. Just watching all of these different worldviews compete and fight in basically the way it happens in the real world is like, oh no, we have to go back to our philosophical orthodoxy so we can make sure everybody knows what the real thing is.
Truth is, right.
Right. And so you see things like that in like War and Peace and stuff like that, where there's not a narrator endorsed perspective. It's just the stuff is happening. And
yeah. That's actually a good way to put it. I didn't think about that. But that's really almost what they did with Cheney. Was they kind of stuck her in there as being like, and I read an article where someone was like, Paul Atreides starts as the protagonist, but he doesn't end as the protagonist. And the only way that they come to that conclusion is because, well, then what happened? Well, they fixed Cheney as the sort of moral high ground.
Right. And anytime you know that you're hearing the voice of the narrator through a character, it totally ruins it.
Which is the biggest critique of the 1980. One of the biggest critiques of the 1984 Dune was the overuse of the internal monologue and narration to drive the story. Which is what's so amazing, because that's what I feel like what's frustrating to me is that the visual storytelling tools and the talent that exists today for to tell the story was they could have done it. Like they could have held that tension and they could have done it masterfully, and they could have used, and they did it. Denis did it. So I guess his name's pronounced Denis, even though it looks like Dennis, but Denis talks about, like, I mean, he did such a great job with the visual storytelling of creating tension, creating like visceral responses from the imagery. Like, he could have done it so well.
It's like back in around, I assume like 2002, some kid from our generation found a magical lamp and he didn't know that the genie was nefarious, and he wished that all of his favorite IP would be made into movies, and the genie said, you got it.
That's it.
Lesson learned: don't make deals with the Fae, ladies and gentlemen.
Speaking of IP and original storytelling, I'll tell you what I just started watching before I came up here to do this episode. I didn't realize that the show The Gentleman, which is on Netflix, was a Guy Ritchie miniseries. It's you guys know, maybe you do or you don't. I believe that the last era of original storytelling that existed in our society was the early aughts, the early 2000s.
Totally agree.
Right? Train Spotting, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Basically every Guy Ritchie film.
Boondock Saints.
You can save yourself some time.
Saints. Like, and okay, I understand that these stories and the ones that I just listed are about some very dark content and that they're very harsh.
We might have to preface
so
that.
I'm just going to go ahead and preface that.
Endorsement of
Do
some of these
not
movies.
watch those movies.
But they're original.
However, they are artistic. Like even movies like I rewatched Green Street Hooligans the other night with my wife, and have you seen Green Street Hooligans?
Yeah,
oh my
so
gosh,
good, man.
Elijah Wood goes. Dude, The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. Just so many great.
Dude, I was talking with someone the other day, and he was like, "Everything I know about soccer, I learned from Ted Lasso." And I was like, "Yeah, everything I know about it, I learned from Green Street Hooligans." And he was,
Thank you.
He was like, "I haven't seen it," and I was like, "It's basically the same."
I was.
Do
in
you know why
European
West
football
Ham
before.
is? Yeah, that's why West Ham is the antagonist in Ted Lasso.
Oh, because of the Green Street
West Ham
Hooligans.
United is Green Street Hooligans,
right?
The Hammers, right? So
anyway,
Guy Ritchie's. I've been disappointed with his last several movies because he got away from doing the edgier, but Guy Ritchie did King Arthur. Okay, Guy Ritchie did a couple of other ones that didn't quite do as well, but this one is holding up so far. I'm only in the first episode. But to your point, Tim. I haven't seen any good original IP
early 2000s,
since the early 2000s.
With reboots, right? And then they exhausted those and went with sequels, right? And then we got the MCU basically was which is just,
and then Disney acquired.
Then Disney acquired Star Wars and destroyed that. So tell me there's not a nefarious genie granting the wishes of a 12-year-old millennial boy.
Dude, it's so bad. And they're going to figure it out.
No, they're not. They're gonna because AI is going to lower the bar for making high quality looking content so far that the people who actually know how to make and write good stuff are just going to be able to do it without the massive multi-million-dollar resources of Hollywood.
Yeah,
So
that's
here's
what-
the interesting thing. We
go
look
ahead,
at
Josh.
how we talked about AI as raising the ceiling or raising the floor, right? And there was less people on top that would raise above that,
Yeah.
you know, so everybody would make the ground floor equal. However, I think it brings opportunities with storytelling from, you don't have to be, you know, highly trained. You don't have to be, you can literally, if you can tell a good story, then you
Yeah.
can actually produce something, and it won't be held to such a high standard, you know, granted. But I think that this is an opportunity for Christian storytellers, for people that are wanting to get into it, that went to college for storytelling and writing and stuff, to like generate your own
Yeah,
It
you
content.
don't
happened
It's-
with books.
it's probably
right?
gonna
The
be better
cost
than
of
most of the
entry
things
of
that you
publishing a book dropped so significantly
Well,
in the
I
information
think-
age that authors who were good at it didn't have to go convince some publisher to
Dude,
publish
Right.
it. They could just
Well,
do
Brandon
it.
Sanderson, when he makes millions of dollars on like a Kickstarter
yeah.
to write a series, it's like, okay, why
Yeah.
are publishers even around?
Why do they
anymore?
even
He
exist?
just set the
Dude,
standard.
we were talking about that today.
Yeah.
My kids we love watching like maker stuff on YouTube, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like I'm watching all these independent channels that are producing stuff that like they put HGTV out of business. Like all of these fields, like these people
Right.
are producing content that is better than the
Dude,
best that
yeah.
studios could produce.
I was unwinding
Yeah.
the other day and I watched a guy just go out, like no words on YouTube,
Yeah.
just like go out into the forest and like do some bushcraft with his hatchet while I'm, you know, in my theater, you know, while I'm sipping on my
Yeah.
bourbon. And it's just
Right.
like, this is exceedingly pleasant.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm just
So-
glad that I am not the only one that literally, when I feel like I need to get outside and be a man, I watch like primitive technology or something like that, where it's just the guy's camping and I'm like, living vicariously.
One day
through
I'll
you
get
because
there.
I can't
Right.
leave the house.
Oh, dude, I cannot wait till my kids are old enough for me to like take them.
How old are your
Camping.
kids now?
1 and 3 with one on the
No
way.
excuse. Get out of here. Get out of here. I taught you
Coming
both
from
better
a
than
mis-
this.
a
Live
missionary
from my
kid from
example.
China.
No.
Like-
I did that when I was there. You saw. I showed you
man.
the way. There's no
It's true.
excuse.
I did. My kids wanted to go camping, and I was like, I am not going to waste money going out camping when they're going to hate it. We're going camping in the backyard, and we did it. And they're like, halfway through, they're like, Dad, it's too hot. I don't like
You
this.
can't
There's
go
bugs
to the
everywhere." I was like, I'm
backyard.
sorry. We're
Take
going
them
to
far
stay
away.
out here.
That's right.
I-
but they
Yes,
know they're
but
too close to home.
I made them stay outside, and we did the whole thing overnight and everything, and that was it. It was a good learning experience for them, and they were like, maybe I'm going to need to take this more seriously.
Do you know?
But I
Uh-huh.
think the next time.
Did you
we're
have a
gonna
fire?
definitely
Did
go
you have a
out.
fire in your backyard
Yes,
at
we
least?
did. Of course, we
Okay.
had a
All right.
fire.
He's in
we did
Texas. He gets to
s'mores.
do things like that now.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we can have fires here. I left
Yeah,
California.
except
I'm
the
not
fire
going back.
department goes and puts
Yeah.
it out when it's too much.
Hey. So Josh, take them to.
That was
you
so
need to
obnoxious.
go. Here's a shout out for you. Go to Waco. Go to. Shoot, what is the
Baylor?
name of the place? No, it's not Baylor, not or Magnolia. There's a surf a man-made wave there.
Oh,
in,
really?
In Waco, and they have a campground, and they've got like a little,
Okay.
they've got like a water park thing, like not like crazy, but it's like it's outdoor. There's like a lazy river. You can go watch the people surf. Your kids can do that, but I'm just saying it's nearby, so you should go check that out.
Sure.
But,
Yeah, that sounds cool. I'll definitely check that out.
But to bring it back around, though, I think what we're gonna see is a similar situation to with bigger production films is AI, and especially when we like the new AI generative video is
Sora?
gonna Sora is going to, those types of tools are going to
Yeah.
really open the door to good story. And then people, to your point, Josh, I liked how you said that the bar, like we'll have a lesser expectation
Right.
but it will be the content, like the stories will rise and fall by the content of the narrative as
Dude, I
opposed
rewatched
to the
the
spectacle.
I rewatched the first episode of what was it called? Pillars of the Earth. It's old. It's probably 20 years old now, and it had more like emotive, like evocative moments in it than like entire modern series that I've watched.
Yeah.
Bro, I walked out of the theater yesterday, and I'm waiting for my wife to go to the bathroom and stuff, and we're just like, I'm just standing there and I'm listening to people's conversations going out. And granted, this is a decent movie, right? Wasn't better than the first one you said, and by no means is it
And
like
visually
one of
it
the
was.
greatest movies, right? But like people are coming out, and I'm overhearing people say, "Gosh, I'm just so happy that there's finally a good movie that I can go see." Like people are so sick and tired of this propaganda and then this junk that's coming out of Hollywood right now. And so
yeah, and
like,
they should
I'm
be going back
for...
and watching the old Jimmy Stewarts and all. Like they're fantastic.
Oh yeah,
like if you actually like good movies and you have the attention span to have a scene last more than 3 minutes, like
I'm telling you, like
20 seconds, really.
I was raised on the Marx Brothers, the Three Stooges, and Humphrey Bogart.
Did we watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea again the other night?
Yeah,
it's really good. Still holds up.
Oh, yeah.
Still holds up.
The whale of a tail too.
That's it.
There's some really, really good stuff, like some older stuff. I
Apple
remember
Dumpling Gang, old Disney stuff.
Yeah, well, for me it was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Man,
it's classic.
Made me,
yeah.
Gosh,
the whole like,
movie.
oh, we're just gonna go kidnap wives and then they'll fall in love with us
Yeah.
while they're stuck up here.
But secretly, they weeped and weeped and weeped and cried.
Secretly, they were
overjoyed.
So good.
You can't make that movie.
Can't
today.
make movies anymore.
Oh, we should.
And yet,
we should totally petition a
dude.
remake of. I think it would be funny either way. Like even if they did
you have
justice,
to
it would be
keep
good.
the
If
story
they didn't
exactly
do it
the
justice,
same.
it would be
Disney
hilarious.
Just overcorrects.
I know. It's the women that go and kidnap the men and
Bob
hold
Iger's,
them against
yeah,
their
that's
will.
it.
Anyway, can we just last thing? I do want to talk about the performance and the acting on it, because I think that I don't know if my standards are just lower. I was reluctant of Timothy Chalamet or whatever his name is.
Chalamet,
And
Timothée.
Zendaya. First of all, definitely Zendaya, because I felt like
I don't trust any actor that goes by one name.
I know, right? But she was so monotone of a Mary Jane in the Spider-Man series. She was just not entertaining. It's so hard to be invested in her.
Dude, there's
in
a lot of
comparison to where she was. I think she did a lot better in this movie. And she was able to bring about the emotional moments that needed to be. Also, Timothée Chalamet, coming from Wonka and coming from some of these other movies, I was like, I don't know if he could pull off the amount of intensity that needs to. And I thought he did wonderful when he basically.
He did very good.
It was like, oh, that shift, and he just played the role. I was like, oh, now we're seeing a completely different character shifting in moments.
Yes.
That was brilliant. But disagree with me in the comments, but that's what I think.
No. Okay. Zendaya, though, you could have put any number of other actresses in there and it would have worked well. And here's the other thing. I'm so sick and tired of seeing this. Like, I'm sorry. Physics are physics.
Right.
110-pound woman is not sweeping the leg of a 275-pound monster of a man or kicking him in the head and falling over. Listen, I'm a small guy. For those of you who don't know, I know I'm sitting in this chair. I am 5'7". I weigh $150. I have wrestled, done martial arts, and do all of these things. There are limits to physics.
Weight classes
there
for
are
a
just
reason.
things you cannot do. And I am a man that weighs 150 pounds. Like, I don't pick fights with people big. I don't pick fights at all. But even if I did, like, that's why I carry a gun in America, because I'm just not going to do that.
Right.
Okay.
Well, let's be honest. There is equalizers. Like, get a gun.
Yes.
If you're a 5'2", a barely 100-pound woman soaking wet, get yourself a gun, and you will equalize a 6 foot, 7 foot man. Like,
but in this culture,
understand where that balance is. You can't just get a knife and have blue eyes and pretend all of a sudden be able to
and that's part of the narrative. Like, I mean, to be fair, like, I mean, the equalization of the Fremen and the notion that you had like females and males in these different roles. Like, I appreciate, even Frank Herbert included that in the original. Like, Cheney was there with the party, out when they found, when they ran across Paul and whatnot. So they're out there doing hard things, and it's not that they can't fight. But it's like, these actresses that they're picking, though,
suspend the disbelief.
It doesn't
work.
work.
Who was that chick
hard.
They had in The Mandalorian, right? She looked like she could actually do
the Mandalorian.
Yeah, the Mandalorian.
Let's make it about Mando, and then totally turn it around about this chick. Yeah,
right. So anyway,
like,
all that to say, pick a better actress, and also maybe an actress who plays that 1,000-yard stare. Like, I've had a hard life. Not this girl whose entire repertoire is a high school, mathlete, and drug addict in whatever show she is on HBO that I refuse to watch.
Yeah. Zendaya, if you're out there and you want to join the show, you are always,
Yeah.
invitation is open. We would love to talk to you.
I'm sorry. I know. I'm going to
Jesus.
belay that. I don't like
And
looking
I'm
at her face.
And yeah,
I don't like looking at her face. I will not be on that episode.
yeah.
We will
And
do
also,
a audio podcast, and it will be fine.
Well, I'll invite your boyfriend, Tom. Tom, feel free to come on. You can defend your girlfriend's honor, and we'll talk to you about why you should make better choices. Now, I'm sure she's a lovely young lady.
5'7".
I know. That's why I can say that, because I'm not scared of him. Unless you're actually Spider-Man, in which case, maybe disregard everything
Tom
I
Holland?
said.
Is that who it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm
That's
kidding,
so
Zendaya.
funny.
I'm sure you're a wonderful person. I would love to know what your real name is, so I can stop calling you by a one-word moniker. But anyway, we digress. Let's talk about acting that was exceptional in this movie. Obviously, you have incredible characters. In great. I mean, Skarsgård as the Baron. I've never seen a guy do so much with so little. And I've not been a huge Austin Butler fan because of the guy has a very I want to punch you in the face kind of vibe going on.
Like his face literally looks like a caricature, like a caricature painting. It just let me share that real quick because we got to see that real quick because his face just looks like I've painted it or I've colored it, Like it just doesn't
Austin,
like something you would go to Disneyland to get your face painted or
and
a
the way he
caricature
talks
drawn.
I'm watching Masters of the Air, which is also fantastic. But Austin Butler's in that as well, and he plays a major, and he's all cold, standoffish, and I'm like, dude, you're a guy playing a guy dressed as another guy. You don't there's no authenticity.
And he was in Elvis too, right? He was.
Now he nailed the Elvis thing, but and I thought that was great. So I'm not hitting him too hard on that because I thought as Thade Rotha he did really, really good. I wanted to hate him. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Let's set a baseline though. None of us are actors, and I acknowledge.
Speak for
how
yourself,
difficult
nerd.
It is.
I was in multiple productions.
Okay.
All right. No, I'm just
all right. So I did theater production for 4 years. I wouldn't consider myself a thespian because I love Jesus. But anyway, the way that I would say is it is a difficult thing to take on persona and act like somebody else. And I couldn't do any better than any of these people. So, but I will say,
I don't have to be able to paint to know that a Rembrandt is better than a Jackson Pollock.
I just wanted to deflect that attack on us really quick. But yes, go ahead.
I'm not criticizing that. I do think, but here's my point. I'm trying to give Austin Butler credit, right? I know it's a difficult thing to do, and sometimes it's just the personality or the way guy comes across. You just look at him and you're there's something about you I don't like,
I just want to punch you in the face.
Yeah, and those people normally become character actors.
Josh, that's called PTSD, and
I know,
you might want to talk to the chaplain about that.
Yeah, talk to somebody about that. But I wanted to hate him so much. I really did. I wanted to hate him as Thade Rotha, but man, in the few lines that he did have, there weren't many, but the one scene when he squares off to fight with Paul Atreides, and he says, and Paul gives him the whole cousin thing, and he just plays it off. He's like, cousin, really? Interesting. Yeah. He's like, well, it's not the first family member I've killed, and he just rolls into it. And then he the guy's clearly psychotic, and
he plays a very good psychotic person.
Oh, but he did so good. I thought it was very, very well done. I thought because Sting was obviously forced, and I love Sting to death. Sting, if you ever hear this, I'm a huge fan, man. Can we hang out just one time? That's all, coffee, tea. Sorry, I know you're English. Anyway, we digress.
We got to be, I feel like if we want to get people on our podcasts, we're going to have to be look, we grant ourselves to completely ask for forgiveness later on. If you want to come onto the show, we will change what we think and we say, just
we'll have a great conversation. I'm not going to change my opinion about what I saw. I would love to have my perspective, broadened.
They have the burden of proof now. That's just
correct. That's it. I'm the customer. Okay, I get to say what I like and what I don't like.
That's right.
Paid for the ticket. Anyway,
$14 allows you to mouth off to a celebrity.
Yeah, €14. Get out of here. Jeez.
Anything else on Dune that we wanna to close up with, or
Dune is so beautiful.
I think we nailed it.
Read Dune. This is what I will say before we wrap this up. If you enjoyed Dune, if you saw the movie and you thought it was good, okay, if it was compelling or intriguing and you're like, dude, I want more, here's what I'll tell you. The book, philosophically, thematically, character development wise, is as good or better than what you saw visually in there. So like the bar that the visual and audio production quality of that film was on par with what the book brought there. And if I have one critique to sum it up, it's that the shoehorning of the other narrative just detracted from that. And so if you want to get that, if you kind of felt the same way when you watched it, just get it on Audible. You can get it on Audible. It's like 30 hours long. Take you a while to get through.
Would you recommend just the first book, or because there's something like five?
The
or
first
six
book stands
books in it?
alone. The first book, there's a lot.
Okay.
It gets weird after. I would say I've only read the first two. So like if you the first two books basically end the Paul Atreides story, and then it's about his grandkids and kids. So, but yeah, so I would recommend it. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with this edition of I'm Telling God About This Movie. And man, that flows so nice.
That's good. Yeah, I like that.
So good.
So thanks, guys. Like, subscribe, comment in below with what you think, and we'd love to interact with you. All right, have a great rest of your day.